We
are
are live. Yes. Hello, everybody. This is Park
Hello,
Right Here
everyone.
podcast. This is Katrina
Tom
and
and
Jim
Tom. Oh, wait a minute, not just anybody. This is Jim Allen. He's one of our fellow ambassadors at Davis Finney, although we do not represent Davis Finney. We just happen to be members there. But you guys are in a treat today because this Southern gentleman is going to tell you a lot of things that make your life so much easier. And so before we get started, we got to set the table here. This is something I found when I was cleaning out my house.
You're right. We don't need directions. Maybe you'll find a shortcut. Don't worry about taking the trash out. I can use the exercise.
Okay, on that note, let's get serious because we don't want this to be a serious meeting by all means.
Oh, no, it never is. We never know what direction this is going to go. We'll start one place and end up at another. But that's the way it always goes.
For the listening audience, we count the number of tangents I go off on. This was tangent number 1. So keep score at home, folks.
I know Jim has kind of a topic he wants to talk about. So we'll let the guest start today. Mr. Jim.
You let me talk about topics, I'll be here all day. Just give people an idea of who I am. I'm 66 now. I was diagnosed in August of 2021 at the age of 64. And my diagnosis story was a really good one because I started having a tremor in November of 2020. And my bosses noticed I was having trouble with memory at work. And I certainly was. I was having trouble falling or kind of falling. I didn't fall, but I would, kind of tilting over when I was walking. So I finally went to my doctor and the doctor got me a referral to a movement disorder specialist. I lived 7 minutes away from a center of excellence in Augusta, Georgia at Augusta University. So I got really good care right away and got diagnosed in August of 2021. The doctor told me at the time that it was a very early diagnosis, which I did not appreciate at the time, but which I appreciate a great deal now, because I've met other people my age diagnosed since I was diagnosed who are in much worse condition than I am. And it's nice to get an early diagnosis and be able to get started on this thing. Mm-hmm. When you meet somebody who's had a tremor for 4 years and hasn't been to see a doctor yet, mm-hmm. Your heart just drops because they've lost 4 years that they could have really invested in making their lives better.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of odd is when my neighbor moved here a year ago, and when I got to know him just a little bit better, I said, Paul, I don't mean to intrude on your life, but I noticed you have a tremor that's very, very similar to the Parkinson tremor. And he goes, have you seen a doctor about it? He goes, yeah, I've seen my doctor. He says, I'm under a lot of stress, but when my stress goes away, the tremor gets less. I said, that's exactly right.
That's how it works.
So he said, well, I said, you got to go see a neurologist. He goes, what are they going to do? I said, well, they're going to probably make you touch your nose, do a bunch of things, maybe a CAT scan, an MRI. He may ask for a DAT scan. Don't do the DAT scan because it's really expensive. He's going to maybe do this, and this. So he goes to see the doctor, and about 2-3 days later, he knocks on the door and gives me $20. I said, what's this for? He goes, that's for the copay. The doctor did exactly what you said he was going to do.
Did he have Parkinson's?
He did indeed, unfortunately.
Yeah. Because when the motor symptoms start, you've lost like 70 to 80% of your dopamine by that. I mean, that's right when the motor symptoms start. So it is very, very important to get diagnosed as early as you can, because and to start fighting it with exercise, with nutrition, with, with medication. It's harder, I think, with young onset to decide when that point to start medication because of the dyskinesia that starts and all that other stuff you have to kind of, and work and family and kids. And, that's like a whole separate, issue. Like with me, I have a 16-year-old now and a 30, well, he's almost 30. And my millennial and my Zoomer, shoot me now, please. Anyway, that's a whole nother stress.
Millennial first.
Well, here's some of the people that I've dealt with over the couple of years that I've been doing this. I became an ambassador in April of 22. Is one of the things I've noticed is there are a lot of people who, see if I can get my memory to work now. So I see where I was going to go with this. People who are early in the stage, and they'll talk about, well, it's not going to be helpful to get diagnosed, or or they're all upset because of how long diagnosis takes, because it takes months to get an appointment. It took me 3 months to get an appointment, but some people take 6 months to get an appointment. And on the one hand, I'll say to them, it really doesn't matter in one sense. Okay. They can't cure it. They can't treat it. It's not going to matter in the long term that this happened. What you've got to do is you've got to start now as if they're going to say yes.
Correct.
Start now. Don't wait 6 months to find out that it's yes. You know what they're going to tell you. Watch 6 videos, and the first thing they're going to say in every video is what?
Exercise.
Exercise is what everyone says. And I'll talk to friends that say, well, that's what they say to everybody. Well, yeah, but it matters to us.
Right.
It's really, really important. And if you're going to be delayed in getting your diagnosis, go exercise.
Okay.
Watch the videos. Do the things you need to do. I mean, don't lose sleep over the fact that you're not getting to see the doctor and you don't know the answer. After your first meeting, the doctor's not going to know the answer either.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things the movement disorder specialists all say is the first thing to do in every appointment is to determine whether you were right when you diagnosed them with Parkinson's. Because until you've had it for a very long time, they aren't sure you have it at all.
Mm-hmm.
So this delay thing is just something we have to live with. So.
And to your point on exercise, here's my biggest pet peeve when they say any exercise is good exercise. And because there's some truth to that. Any exercise is better than doing nothing. But with Parkinson's, if you're not exercising at that higher heart rate, doing 3 to 4 times a day, walk around the block with your spouse is just a walk around the block with your spouse. It's not exercise. Certainly it's better than sitting on the couch, but if you're going to exercise, you got to do it right. You got to do. So I took up pickleball because of Parkinson's. I had never played pickleball before. I took it up because of Parkinson's. I love tennis. I'd always loved tennis, and I just didn't feel my partner in tennis all these years couldn't play anymore, and I didn't really feel like trying tennis again. So I took up pickleball. And you know how to tell the difference between a pickleball court and a tennis court? Pickleball courts have people on them. That's the difference. You can always find somebody to play pickleball with. It's hard to get people together to play tennis. So I took pickleball, and I play for about a year now. I've played 2 hours a day, 4 to 6 days a week. And now I'm playing more than that, because another question people always ask, and I've decided this is the wrong question to ever ask, is, am I doing enough exercising? That's the wrong question. That doesn't make any sense. Are you doing as much as you can do?
Yeah.
If you're trying to define it as enough, then you're just doing the minimum you need to do, and that's not enough. You need to do what you can do. So when I recently went to Japan, had a 3-week trip to Japan to visit my daughter, who teaches school in Iwakuni, teaches English. And my wife and I went over there, and we had a great trip. And I walked more than I ever thought I'd be able to walk. I walked as much as 10 miles a day. I never imagined I'd be able to walk 10 miles a day. And I felt better than I've ever felt. I slept wonderfully, because I got to tell you, you walk 10 miles a day, you sleep pretty well. And it was a wonderful trip. And since I've come home, I'm playing more pickleball every day.
Good for you.
And I've got to play more than I've been playing because I was doing more and I felt better. I've actually reduced my carbidopa levodopa since I got back from Japan.
No kidding.
Yeah, I was on 5 a day, and now I'm back to 4 a day with entacapone.
Okay. Yeah, I'm on 6 a day with entacapone.
Yeah. Yeah, that wonderful entacapone. They're so big. The carbidopa is so small, and the entacapones are so big.
And can you speak of one of the side effects of entacapone?
I haven't had any.
Does your urine become bright yellow?
Well, yeah, I don't think of that as a side effect. I just think of that as something that's colorful.
Yeah, because when my doctor told me that side effect, he said, damn, I can't pee in the pool anymore because everyone knows it's going to be me.
Well, the trouble is I also take a vitamin B complex, and it does the same thing. So it's basically like, Orangeade. So.
Yeah, there you go. But like Jim, I'm playing now 4 times a week, and we just started up a distribution group where, for example, yesterday I saw they had an hour free at the court, because those courts are usually booked early. And I just booked the court, sent out an email saying I need 3 people to play pickleball at 1 o'clock. And within like 5 minutes, I had my 3 people.
Yeah. There are so many people playing, and there's so many people who want to play, that you don't have to not play because they're not there. But I have to add more to it. Now, and the other thing that everyone needs to do, that I strongly encourage everyone to do, when you get a diagnosis, get a referral to physical therapy.
Mm-hmm.
The day you get a diagnosis, and that but in the 3 months between when my doctor got me the appointment, and my primary care doctor said nothing to me about Parkinson's, but I'm not stupid. So I looked these things up, and I came to the realization that's probably what I had. And I looked all these things up, and I watched these MDS videos. And I knew what I was doing going in. So I said, here's what I want. I want a physical therapy referral. Well, I'm not sure you really need that. No, but I want it.
What?
Okay, I want one. I need one. I want one. Physical therapy was great. They taught me how to walk with intent, how to pay attention to my walking. We spent a whole day on how to empty a dishwasher, because that's where I fall. I tend to fall when I'm turning.
Oh, okay.
I have to learn a new way to turn.
Mm-hmm.
So physical therapy was great. We 4 lessons, but it was great.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted occupational therapy. So I did occupational therapy 4 weeks. It was great. And then I asked for speech therapy. So I did 2 things of speech therapy, and they gave me books, the Speak Out books from Parkinson's Voice Project. And that was all I had to do.
Mm.
But they all helped tremendously.
Mm-hmm. It helps prepare you, and it helps to keep what you've got now. So so you're a step ahead of where so you don't, it helps prevent, because eventually you're going to get, it's going to progress eventually, but as much as you can keep now is a great thing. It helps. Yeah. And one thing I noticed when my physical therapist, because I started physical therapy very early too, and she could notice that I was a dancer back in the day, just from my balance and how I kept my balance and stuff, how my body would turn. She goes, were you a dancer back in the day? And of course, I could never take a sobriety test. I would fail immediately. I mean, I've dealt with this for like over 12 years now, but that's the only part I would fail. Even now after 12 years, I can usually do pretty good, but I'm still independent, and I've had DBS since 2021. Because I went in with a walker and I came dancing out. That's my thing.
Parkinson's. Seen your video.
Yeah, for Dance for PD is amazing with Rosenthal from New York. He's a dancer from New York, and he started Dance for PD. That's I know my church has a pickleball court in their gymnasium. That's where we're going to play pickleball. So I'm kind of in a different kind of area rurally. I am rural as rural can be. I'm at Big Creek with a creek in front of me, the railroad tracks, and the holler. So, I mean, I'm about as rural as you can get, but it's my favorite place on the planet. So, I mean, out of all the places I've lived, but it's like as early as you can get and fight this is the biggest thing. And the education, like you said, a lot of times, like me and Tom will talk about this disease. It's so complicated, but it's a snowflake disease. No 2 people have the same symptoms. And it's also more than half the time it's a DIY disease. It really is. You have to know your own body, your symptoms. You have to educate yourself and be your own best advocate. And because, this disease will, depression and anxiety, besides being the top 2 non-motor symptoms, I think everybody's going to struggle with it at some point, but it's like, if you keep yourself educated and motivated, that's more than half the battle, in my opinion. But
right. I find in the beginning too, when I became an ambassador, talking to other people, it was frustrating at times, because some people just they didn't want to get involved. They didn't really want to do the work. They just, I go to my doctor takes this pill, I take the pill, and I move on. And that always frustrates me so much. I was talking to one lady who told me her husband had Parkinson's, and all he does is sit on the couch all day and watch TV. Yeah. And my response to her was, well, how does he eat? He goes, well, I bring him his meals. I said, stop bringing his meals. Put the meals on the table, and if he wants to eat, tell him to get his butt off the couch and go eat. Because I don't mean this. I know you're trying to do what you think is good, but best for your husband, but you're actually hurting them. Because you got to be able to advocate for yourself, and if you can't do that, you should not expect someone else to do it for you. Get off the couch and eat your breakfast. Damn it.
Now, there's part of the thing with Parkinson's to me is a lot of it goes back to modeling. Okay, we as human beings, we model things.
Mhm.
So when we were kids in school, and I'm obviously older, I think, than either of you. When we were kids in school, we were taught that an atom was basically a little solar system, right?
Mhm.
You had the neutron, the nucleus, and then you had the electrons going around. It's nothing at all like a solar system. And everything they told us about it being like a solar system was a lie. Nuclear scientists do not think of it as a little bitty solar system, but it's a model that we used, and it became in our brain the way we thought of it.
Right.
The great trouble with Disney's movie Pocahontas, which was utter nonsense historically, but you now got a whole generation of people who think Pocahontas was a teenage girl when the Americans got there and she wasn't, or when the English got there and she wasn't. So the modeling is very important. To me, see, I take a very different view of the model. I don't think of Parkinson's as a complex disease. I think it's a very simple disease. I don't have dopamine. It's a very simple disease.
Right.
Sure.
In that respect, yes.
And what my body does with that problem is going to be different from what anyone else's body does. Think of it as a river. If you're looking at pictures of rivers and they're all full of water, they all look pretty much the same.
Mhm.
The boats go down the river and everything's very simple. But when a drought comes and the rivers begin to go down, they don't look the same anymore. Each river is different. The current is different. The rocks in the river are different. The way it travels is different. The way the boats have to travel them is different. So where all the boats can travel down the rivers when they're full and travel down them the same way, as the rivers go down, the rivers become different. Each of us has a different sort of subset to our brains. And as our brains lose the dopamine, the way that it deals with that loss is different from person to person.
Mm-hmm.
So when I explain it to people, I explain it as a very simple disease, which has very complex results.
Yeah.
Because the results cannot be known because nobody knows what's happening in your brain.
God knows nobody knows what's happening in my brain.
Nobody knows. Nobody can know. As an old scripture statement, 1 Corinthians 2:10, no one knows the thoughts of a man but the spirit within a man.
Mhm.
And no one
I knew you had a little preacher in you.
There you go. And no one can know what's going on in someone.
Right.
So, we'll say, well, we're the real experts in Parkinson's. Well, no, that's not really true. The real experts in Parkinson's are these doctors or researchers who study this all their lives.
Right.
But I'm the expert in my Parkinson's.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I'm the one who gets to see what the experience of mine is. But these people who get this disease and do nothing, they don't take their medicines. I was talking with a man a couple of months ago who's diagnosed about my age. He's got this terrible tremor. He can't do anything. He's got medications prescribed for him. He doesn't take them. And he goes to a general neurologist, doesn't want to go to a movement disorder specialist, and doesn't really like his neurologist and doesn't want to change anything. To me, if I'm living within 30 miles of a center of excellence, I know where I'm going to see a doctor.
Absolutely.
This makes no sense to me at all.
I mean, just a
I drive
neurologist
4
would be a good-
hours.
Yeah.
neurologist may be a good doctor, but he's not an expert in the field of Parkinson's.
And he won't take his meds. And I talk to these people who, well, I don't want to take medicines. No, but you take medicine because you want to live the best life you can live.
Right.
And you can't live your best life without the medicines.
Mm-mm.
I don't
Like you
care.
mentioned earlier, since
I don't care where you
Parkinson's,
are.
the medications we take are merely maintenance drugs. They help us live a better life. They're not going to slow down Parkinson's. They're not going to end Parkinson's. And sometimes I wonder if that's in the back of their mind that it's not really going to do anything about my Parkinson's, but it is going to give you a better quality of life.
Yeah, I mean,
There we go. Got my
that's
little-
right. You take your meds, and so I take. So when I go to sleep at night, okay, they put me. My first problem was sleep. Oh, everybody's got their meds. My first problem was sleep. And the doctor told me, the movement disorder specialist, he put me on trazodone for sleep before he put me on anything else. He said, you need this more than you need carbidopa-levodopa.
Your sleep
because you're not
hygiene.
sleeping. So they put me on a sleep hygiene rule. So I go to bed every night at the same time. I get up every morning at the same time. And the 2 hours before I go to bed, my wife, who's a wonderful person, doesn't talk about anything important. We don't watch any news. We don't watch any depressing shows. I go to bed, I have a routine, and I go to sleep. I
Well,
now
this is I always carry my little notebook and pen
There you
with me because if it's important, if I don't write it down, it doesn't happen.
Well, if it's after 7 o'clock at night, it doesn't happen to me because I don't care to know about it. And I take clonazepam now because I have the REM sleep behavior disorder.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, we all get that little happy thing to do, and I take melatonin for that as well. And you take all your medicines at night because you got to take them.
Yep.
And these people will say, "Well, I don't want to take all those meds." I say, "Well, yeah, but do you want to sleep?
Do you want to have vivid dreams? You want?
I mean, I'm going to have the vivid dreams. There's nothing I can
Right.
do about that. But maybe I won't hit my wife."
Yeah.
Now, you make a good point because like the two of you have sleep issues. I don't have sleep issues. I lay down within 5 minutes. Sometimes within 30 seconds, I'm out.
That would be nice.
I tend to sleep through the night, but my Parkinson's is more tremor based, and of course the cognitive skills decline time to time. But I'm more of a tremor based Parkinson's, and right now I'm not really presenting my Parkinson's because I take my medications, and I can. It's funny. My left leg I say is my Parkinson's barometer because the dopamine lasts about 3.5 hours, maybe pushing 4 for me. But then when my left leg starts to feel the tremor, I can almost look at my watch and say, it's 10:45 because I'm supposed to take my meds at 11. It's very cyclical in that respect.
Well,
and I don't have any tremor at all. So I have the heavy and the slowness.
So I have tremor. In fact, I've had bad tremor today. The tremor mainly is in my left hand, and the biggest thing it affects is my typing. Yep. It makes it very difficult to type efficiently.
Your hand's going like this, trying to hit the keys.
And the nice thing if tremor is your dominant symptom is that's what carbidopa levodopa treats. It doesn't treat all these other things that we do. It doesn't treat your sleep. It doesn't treat constipation. It doesn't treat mild cognitive impairment. It doesn't treat any of those things. And mild cognitive is not good at. I used to be very good at multitasking. I used to be very good at. I was an attorney. That's what I did for a living. By the way, as someone who's been a prosecutor for 2 years, Katrina, I will tell you, never take a sobriety test. Even if you are totally sober and totally able to do it, if the police want to give you a sobriety test, it's because they think you're drunk. They don't give it to people they don't think are drunk. They're giving it to you to prove that you're drunk. And if a jury doesn't see a sobriety test, they will not decide that you're drunk. So never take them. Always refuse.
My husband told me that a long time.
Yeah.
He's retired military. So
if they ask you for a blood test, tell them no.
Yep.
And just tell them no. And let them go get a judge up in the middle of the night and let him give an order to say that you can get a blood test. Because that's, and in our county, the county I worked in, the judges had told the police, we're not going to get up in the middle of the night and do that. We don't care.
Well, I remember this was about probably 5 years ago. I was in California. It was late and I'm driving home and I got pulled over and the officer thought I was drunk driving. I'm like, no, I have Parkinson's. If I'm showing any erratic driving, it's due to the Parkinson's, not the alcohol. He goes, and then he started questioning me. Did you have anything to drink today? I said, I had 1 glass of wine 4 hours ago. I'm 6'2". I had a belly full of food. There's no alcohol in my system. I have Parkinson's. And he's trying to have me do all these, like touch my nose. And the side of the road was sloped because I need you to stand there and balance for me. Do this. It's a sloped side. I'm not going to do that. It's finally got to the point that I was starting getting angry, but I wanted to make sure that I kept my composure. But I said, officer, my hotel is the next exit. If you're so concerned, can you just follow me home for 30 seconds and I'll be home and you make sure I get home okay? Because I haven't had a drink in 4 hours.
And I'll show you all my medicines.
Yep. And by the way, I'll show you this too.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, things I learned in going to Japan, if you're going to take medicine into a foreign country, you've got to really be prepared because they don't like all those medicines. Some of the supplements people take, they won't let you take melatonin into Japan unless you've got a prescription for it. And the bottle that you have for it is in prescription. And if you're going for more than 30 days, you actually have to get advance approval in order to take medicine into Japan.
Really?
Yeah.
I know the UK is just coming out with Inbrija, which is something that came out in like 2018 here, 42 milligrams. They're only coming out with 33 milligrams, which I think is just kind of odd question mark. But because I had somebody ask me about like, what is the side of, I'm like, I mean, I can tell you what I've experienced, but it's, you've got to talk to your doctor, because that's another thing. Usually me and Tom, because I was a nurse for 20 years, kind of like you, I could memorize 10 patients' medications for the day. I could multitask. Because honestly, I thought I was prepared for a Parkinson's diagnosis. The non-motor symptoms bug me way more than the motor symptoms.
That's been true for me too. Yeah.
The cognitive.
I traveled this summer. I went to Italy, and we actually stopped in France. We stopped in Italy. We stopped in Zurich on the way home. But I had taken all my meds in their bottles with the prescription labels and such, just to be on the safe side, because I didn't know if I was going to face any issues trying to get my meds into any of those countries. But it never came up, not a single time. I had my meds in my carry-on bag. Of course, it went through X-ray. Never once came up.
Sure. Well,
but if you did, I wanted to be prepared. Best to be prepared
because if you're over there, you can't get your meds.
Correct.
Nobody over there is going to give you any medicine, so you're kind of stuck with it. But it was a fun trip. We had a great time in Japan. I got to walk off all these old steps that are uneven, and had to do a lot of work. But it was an excellent trip.
Good.
Had a good time with that.
I know I feel spoiled a little, or I feel guilty sometimes because I have TRICARE. I have military, retired military. So I do have a little bit of a copay, but not much of a copay. And usually I can get any med. Like some people can't get Inbrija, or they have very high copays with the Rytary or anything. And I feel, really bad sometimes, because I've heard of people having to pay $200 or $300 for a month of Rytary. I'm like, wow. I mean, my copays at the most are $50 a month, and I'm like, wow. I mean,
I've got to ask you a question, Katrina.
Sure.
What is the wearing silver for Parkinson's? I haven't ever seen that before.
That's the color of our ribbon. I
didn't know we had a ribbon.
We have tulips.
And we have a month. Our month is April.
I knew we had a tulip. I didn't know we had a ribbon.
Yep, our ribbon is silver, and April is the month of Parkinson's awareness. And tulip, which is the sign for Park Right Here. My son actually came up with the name Park Right Here. I did 5 episodes of the podcast for the pandemic, because there was so many people were so scared getting that diagnosis during the pandemic and not being able to go exercise, and there was so much miscommunication and misinformation. Oh boy, because people were only getting their information over the internet, or Tom's got to tell you his story of the of the weekend after he got his diagnosis, and he just went to the internet. You don't go to the internet after your diagnosis unless you're going to go to Davis Finney, Michael J. Fox, Cleveland Clinic, Mayo Clinic. That's about
There's our tulip, but you can't see it, but it is a tulip.
Yeah, or up in the upper left-hand or right-hand corner of the StreamYard.
Well, it's funny what Katrina's saying. I was initially in August of 2015. Unfortunately, my younger brother passed away from cancer, and I was at his bedside when he passed. And sometime that day or the next day, I started having tremors in my arm, and I just assumed it was stress related. So the tremors weren't going away. I got to see my primary. He said, "I don't want to scare you, but it could possibly be Parkinson's. What I'd like you to do is go to the hospital." And I said, "Why the hospital?" Because he can run all the tests that I can't run, and they get everything done at one time. So I did, and they came back with essential tremor and a pinched nerve. And I was questioning this: what would have happened to me that the same moment I would have essential tremors and a pinched nerve? Can you explain? But it took about 3 to 4 months before I remember the neurologist they sent me to finally said in December, "I think you have Parkinson's. Come back in 30 days," and that was it.
Yeah.
And so I know what she was meaning at the time. I said, "I think you have Parkinson's. I need to evaluate you over a period of time." Much better to say it that way than come back in 30 days. So that's when I started my hunt. I got a neurologist in the beginning because my specialist, the one I tried to get an appointment with, couldn't see me for 6 months. I went to the first neurologist, said, "Listen, I think I have Parkinson's." She diagnosed me as such. This was the Tuesday before Tuesday before Valentine's Day, 2016. And I remember coming home that night feeling, it's just feeling like crap, because now you have the official, and I'm laying in bed and I swear I'm watching Archie Bunker. How can you be unhappy when you're watching Archie Bunker? And I watched another Archie Bunker episode. And then I said, I'm going to watch one more episode and then I'm going to bed. Well, this is my little throw-out question. Watching TV Land, being diagnosed with Parkinson's, what's the worst TV show that can come on after Archie Bunker?
I have
Family
no idea.
Ties.
Family Ties with Michael J.
Ties.
Fox. I heard that theme song. I looked at the ceiling and said, "This ain't funny. This is not." But I think I used a different adjective to describe how it wasn't that funny. But that weekend, my wife had plans to see her sister in California, so I said, "Go ahead, I'm fine." But in hindsight, being alone by yourself with the diagnosis of Parkinson's and the internet, not a good thing. I almost bought a barrel of coconut oil because they said it cured Parkinson's. I probably would have really good smelling hair, but that would be about the extent of it.
I tell you, the extent to which people will trust nobody instead of trusting a doctor overwhelms me.
It's on the internet. It must be true.
Now, I have a brother who's a pediatrician. I used to be an attorney for a naval hospital. I understand medicine a little bit. But there are these people who they'll believe anything as long as it's said to them by someone who is unqualified to say it.
God, yes.
You see it in politics. You see it in medicine. They'll believe anything as long as the person saying it is an idiot. As long as they're selling you something and they say they'll cure you, they believe it. We've known, because I did the research on this to make a presentation for people. We have understood that the substantia nigra is what's at issue in Parkinson's since the 1930s. This is not a question. When they started doing serious autopsies, they found this really quick. This wasn't hard to identify at all. When they say they've confirmed a diagnosis by autopsy, it's the substantia nigra. And there's also, of course, the alpha-synucleins, the Lewy bodies, but there are other diseases that have Lewy bodies, so that doesn't really confirm anything. It's the substantia nigra that makes it all work. So we've known that forever. Why does someone think now that shining red lights on your head is going to heal the substantia nigra?
Some of it I think is, I call it the lemmings. They're just following the person in front of them over the cliff. Some people just I don't understand why they don't do their own, not research per se, but why don't they just do something proactively to find out what is going on and not just taking, my nephew sent me a video the other day. He goes, go to marker 1 hour and 3 minutes. And this guy was a biologist. And someone asked him a question about Parkinson's. He said, well, Parkinson's is caused by inflammation of the nervous system. And if you reduce the inflammation of the nervous system, then your Parkinson's will decline or go away. Right. And I actually took that video and I went on the internet where I could find it, and I posted a long retort to him, basically saying, without trying to be as diplomatic as possible, I've had Parkinson's for 8 years. I can tell you with authority, I'm not a doctor, but with authority, Parkinson's is not caused by the inflammation of your nervous system. It is caused by, and I actually cut and pasted the exact language from the Cleveland Clinic, so I wouldn't put the languages incorrectly. For those people who believe this guy that it's inflammation, then please, for God's sake, pick up a book, go to Johns Hopkins, go to the Cleveland Clinic, go to University of Florida, go to some recognized authority, and just do some reading to make your own decision based on facts, not based on what some guy told you.
And
there's a couple celebrities that will remain nameless on the podcast.
First name Ed.
Oh gosh.
there are so many people who become desperate, and I'm not sure I understand it. I understand I've got Parkinson's and it's progressive and it's going to get worse. Okay, I got that. Right. But you know what? I'm 66 years old now. Things are going to get worse anyway.
Right.
Because they're going to get worse quicker for me than they would for somebody who didn't have Parkinson's who was my age. This is very different than a young onset situation.
Right.
It's not like I'm going to be 40 and be in serious trouble because I'm already 66. So, Michael J. Fox has had it 30 years. If I have it 30 years, I'll be 94 years old. I don't think this is going to happen anyway. So
you'll be 94?
Yeah, I would be 94, and I don't think I'm going to make it to 94 anyway. But so, you have to think about where you are and what you're doing. But these people become so desperate for a cure when we know there's no cure. I mean, there's just not. Maybe there will be one day. There's not. They don't know what causes it. I don't know how you're going to cure anything if you don't know what causes it. So fine, let them keep looking for it. But you know, these people that will pay $100,000 to travel to some third world country and have some people stick cells in them.
Right.
So desperate to pay someone to experiment on them. I've been a part of some studies here. They pay me to participate.
Right.
Yeah, I do studies as well, but I go so far as I won't let them put a needle in my arm. I'll do up to that point.
I have learned I have learned to love the needles. You just got to learn to love them because you got to get them all the time.
Well, I do have to say, being young, I think I was 42 when I got my diagnosis. It is a little scarier when you think about, like, you almost have to plan. I mean, for me, it was, you know, because it took a lot of missteps because of my age and my gender, because getting a proper diagnosis. I had a lot of, and I'm talking neurologists, not regular primaries.
Yeah.
Talking neurologists and specialists to get it properly diagnosed until we were at Fort Belvoir, I mean, close to DC. And my husband was he was working in an executive medicine clinic and had the right connections and just pretty much, I mean, he was working with retired 4-stars and all that. And he was former Marine, and he just pretty much kicked the door down and said, give me the head of neurology. I'm tired of this crap. And he went Marine and he was in the Army. When he goes Marine on some Army soldiers, he freaks them out. So they pretty much do what he says, and they're like, yes, sir. To us, you know, he was the oldest sergeant in the Army. But anyway, so I've got him, and he's pretty much, I think you have I'm pretty sure I noticed a little lack of arm swing and, odds and ends here from the the best neuro exam I had. And he said, I'm going to start you on Sinemet, and this will pretty much tell me whether you have Parkinson's or not. But of course, it's like, people are afraid to take Sinemet because they know eventually you're going to get dyskinesia, which is why I had to take, get the DBS. And that's still a treatment. It's never a cure. Nothing is ever a cure. And then, of course, people like Tom is a little nervous about the brain thing and
oh my God.
Surgery. And
nervous is an understatement.
No,
brain surgery.
I would say this, though. I would disagree when you say that people know they're going to get the dyskinesias, because they don't know it. Not everyone does.
It is a event. I mean, kind of
eventually, when it gets to taking more medicine, you will. Yeah.
Right.
But
it is kind of an eventual side of. I mean, it was like 7 or 8 years. So
yeah.
I mean,
it's because you have to take so much more and so much more.
Right.
And I keep telling people, if you wait 7 years and start taking it, then you're already still going to get dyskinesia because you're going to have to take so much anyway.
Right.
Go ahead and enjoy today.
That's what it was for me. I mean, honestly, when we finally got the diagnosis, and it was like me and my husband both at the same time, we sighed, and it was a sigh of relief. And we finally said, at least we know what it is now. At least we know how to fight it and get educated about it. Because we're both, I mean, he was a combat medic. I was a nurse, and I pretty much had to decide pretty much to retire by that time because of the cognitive stuff. Because that's how I kept fighting it, because I knew the cognitive, everybody kept saying it was all physical. It was in my neck or, pinched nerve or blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, there's something cognitively wrong. I mean, and that totally is a disconnect. I didn't expect Parkinson's, but I was just happy to finally know how to fight it. And then I got, really amazing doctors in Colorado. We were at Fort Carson in Colorado, and an amazing neurosurgeon for the DBS. And I was so blessed. And then I'd come to the Boondocks, and I had every resource. And my neurologist kept telling me, go be an ambassador for Davis-Finney. And I'm like, I'm in Colorado. You throw a stick and there's an ambassador. You throw a stick and there's another one. I'm like, why be an ambassador? But now I'm in, the Appalachians, and there's no ambassadors for the entire state of Virginia. I'm like, that's ridiculous.
So, I got a fact to throw at you guys then, because this what drives my wife crazy. I just consume information all the time. But from the Michael J. Fox Foundation.
Very smart. He's very smart.
Between 40 and 50% of people with Parkinson's will experience dyskinesia after 5 years of taking levodopa. After 10 years, it jumps to 80%.
But that's 10 years that I don't have 10 years that I don't have tremor. That's 10 years that I'm living my life.
Yep. And I'm in for a little over 8 years, and I don't have any dyskinesia yet. So I'm hoping I'm in that 20. But she said,
go ahead.
I was doing a study, one of those studies a couple 3 weeks ago, where they actually were trying to. They didn't have the drug per se, but it was the dopa pump.
The Duopa.
Well,
Duopa
yeah,
Pump is, that's really an interesting thing. And I'm like you. The idea of having someone drill into my brain doesn't thrill me.
and he was asking me, well, what's your thoughts on the pump? I said, well, first of all, I don't, the idea of having to wear, I know people with diabetes do it, but the idea of having a needle stuck in my belly at some point and a constant flow of dopamine, I understand why it's there. I understand the benefits of it. But he goes, I would have to wrap my head around the idea that that's going to be my future to a certain extent. He goes, well, when would you do that? I said, well, it would be to the point where my quality of life, and this is, I think, the key to most people, you don't really make those decisions until it's impact your quality of life that you have to take the next step.
Sure. As long as the carbidopa levodopa does it, you don't have to worry about those things.
Yeah.
Right.
When
I know
they're doing it,
they're working on upgrading the Duopa pump anyway to make it more like an insulin pump instead of having to go into the, because right now it's more of a major gastric surgery. So they're actually working on making it a less of an invasive procedure than it is now.
I had a chance to talk with the Duopa pump representative when we were in Minneapolis, which was the first time I'd had a chance to actually see the pump, which is smaller than I thought it was. It's not nearly as big and bulky as I thought it was. Yeah. And actually, I felt much better about it having seen it than I did before. And it looked to me like it was a fairly good option, but apparently people don't like it. I saw a movement disorder specialist talking once. She said, so you tell people they got a choice. We can drill holes in your brain, stick electrodes into your brain, put a battery in your chest and do it that way. Or we can just put a pump that takes care of it all the time. And she says, and everybody wants the things done in their brain. She said, I don't understand it.
That pump is looking better and better.
But I said, I was going to tell you the other thing you had mentioned with people with young onset and work. It is very important. I actually was an employment attorney. I was an employment attorney for 35 years. I worked for government. I worked for companies. I worked for employees. And I also worked 5 years with the EEOC. So I've done lots of employment law stuff, lots of disability discrimination stuff. When people are working and they have Parkinson's, they need to know what they're doing. They need to be very quick to let their boss know they have it. They don't, I mean, this idea of, well, I'm going to hide it. I'm going to hide it. You can't hide it. It's obvious to everyone you've got it because it's always diagnosed by visible symptoms. It's not like cancer where they do a test and no one knows you have it except the people that see the test results. Everyone sees the tremor. Everyone sees you falling down when you walk, and everyone sees your memory issues. Everyone sees the Parkinson's face. You got to let them know, and you got to seek accommodation in a way that makes sense. And if you don't, they're going to fire you.
Well, it's interesting because
they'll fire you.
I let my employer know, but 4 years into it, I used to say I managed chaos for a living, and the chaos got out of control. Nobody could have managed it.
Yeah.
And of course, with Parkinson's, I was just going off. And I just remember my president of the company, who I considered my friend because I knew him for like 15 years, he basically started avoiding me. I knew there was something going on at that point because he didn't know how to deal with me. Yeah. But ultimately, I went from being a national account manager, overseeing 8 people and $200 million a year in sales, to being offered a job as an assistant with it was an entry-level position that required a GED. That was the role they wanted to offer me.
Had you told them about your Parkinson's?
Yes, I told from the first day. I told my president, I said, Mike, you're my friend. I've known you for X amount of years. I want to be honest with you. I have Parkinson's.
Did you ask for an accommodation?
Well, during that summer, I never did because I didn't need accommodations. And because I could still do the first 3.5, 4 years, I had no issue doing my job. It was that summer where, and this may sound, not to go off on a tangent, but if you remember the Popeye's chicken came out with the chicken sandwich.
Yeah.
Well, I was managing that for 4 states. I was overseeing that, and it was simple. They said each restaurant's going to sell 100 sandwiches a day. You got 7 days a week. You got 150 restaurants. So you do the math, and you know how many sandwiches they're going to sell. Well, we brought in 4 weeks worth of inventory based on that. And unfortunately, instead of 100 sandwiches a day, they were selling 700 to 800 sandwiches a day.
They were selling all of them you gave them for the week.
So they gave it, and within 1 week, they took us out of inventory. But the interesting thing is this product that was made for them was made specific for them based on production dates. So there was no product to replace it with. Sure. And I had people call me saying, I can't open my restaurant. And I care deeply about the people I worked for and worked with. And there was nothing I could do. And the whole summer just went straight downhill. Matter of fact, in Maryland, a couple people got killed over this stupid chicken sandwich.
That's why a lot of us don't believe in central planning, because you can never know what people are going to do.
And I use humor as a way of dealing with things. And I remember calling the director of purchasing for Popeyes, and him and I had a great relationship. I said, Dave, this is what you should do. Come out with a commercial. In a world full of chicken sandwiches, one sandwich stands out among the rest. Popeye's chicken. It's so good, you'll kill for it.
That probably would not have been acceptable.
Probably wouldn't have worked, but so Jim mentioned exercise. He mentioned that, but one of the other things is, I like to say right now, what we're doing here is like a support group. I know Jim from being in a support group. I know Katrina from being in a support group. If you're not in a support group, you're doing yourself probably the worst disservice you possibly can, because if I need to talk to somebody, I've got my group of, say, I call dialing for friends, my group of Parkinson's individuals that I can call and talk with them, because they know what I'm going through. And, and no one judges you. I mean, if you're not I know they're all equally important. I call it the 4 pillars: exercising, diet, having a great doctor, and having a great support group. And you can focus on those 4 things. And none is necessarily better than the other. But at the end of the day, I think being in a good support group is more important than almost, if you had to rank them, is number 1. Because during COVID, I just saw so many of the older Parkinson's people that I knew they just didn't know they just went downhill. They didn't have that. They didn't have that support group to talk to people and be around people. And it was really hard watching that.
What I have found is it's the young onset people who are the best.
Mm-hmm.
It's the young onset people who have the most energy. When you get diagnosed when you're 75 years old, it's really hard to get out and do anything. If you get diagnosed when you're 80 years old, it's hard to do that. But when you see somebody who's diagnosed and they're 35 years old, those people do not want to give up on life.
No, they still have too much to live.
Living it. But I'll say this in terms of the support groups, I have in a way made everybody my support group. Everybody I know knows I have Parkinson's. When I go and play pickleball, the people I play with know I have Parkinson's. The people that I deal with in my church, I pastor a church. I got a diagnosis in August, and in the second Sunday of September, I told my church I had Parkinson's. It is, to me, it is as much a part of my life as anything else is a part of my life.
Right.
And I don't keep it a secret from anybody.
Do you see people looking at you differently, or they just don't look at you differently?
No, they don't. And part of it is because, again, I'm still very early stages, so I don't have a lot of symptoms. But like in pickleball, if I'm holding my hand up to get the ball, my hand will tremble. So
Right.
they're going to throw me the ball. I hold my and so one day I was there and I'm holding my hand up like that and it's trembling. And the guy goes, "Oh, hi." And I said, "No, that's no, that's the Parkinson's." He goes, "Oh yeah, I forgot. I'm sorry."
Okay, tangent time. I got what you just said. A couple years ago, I was doing a thing I was talking to the staffers of our congressperson and our senator. And I came up with a little break the ice joke. And I said, I asked him if I can use the joke. And it kind of goes like, a congressman and his associate are going to a Parkinson's support group meeting. They're bad people. They don't look forward to funding additional research. So they're not quite sure what to expect. But as they got to the room, opened the door, the congressman looks in and looks at his staff and says, "It's okay. They're all waving to us."
We're going to like these people.
Yeah, they're all, because it's funny. Someone said, "What's funny about that? Who didn't have Parkinson's?" Well, you have to have Parkinson's to understand that this is not waving. And the congressman obviously didn't know what this meant. So that blah, 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 blah. You got to connect the dots.
But I do. I tell everybody, I'm one of the nice things is it lets you know things. So I'm at my pickleball place where I've joined, and I'm telling people because they'd meet me and I'll meet somebody and I'll tell her and she'll go, "My husband has Parkinson's." And you meet a woman whose husband is in very advanced stages of Parkinson's. She can only play 2 days a week because that's when she has respite care, because the rest of the time she's taking care of him. I met another woman whose husband has Parkinson's who isn't quite that far along yet, but he's much farther along than I am. And you get a chance to help them and to make them feel better and tell them about, my wife goes to they call it a caregiver support group. I wish they'd call it a care partner support group.
Yeah, just make sure they change that immediately.
But,
no one likes that word caregiver.
Unfortunately, a lot of the women there are caregivers.
Mm-hmm.
And, their husbands are at the stage where, because it's almost all women, their husbands are at the stage where they're no longer partners. They are recipients of care as opposed to partners in care. And that's very important to understand that distinction. But you get to meet people and find out what people are dealing with. It turns out I was playing with the former father-in-law of my movement disorder specialist. I played with the ex-wife of my movement disorder specialist, and she and he
Small town you live in.
in Augusta, Georgia. So they're all you get to know these people, and then other people get in touch with you and say, hey, listen, so and so told me about you, and I want to talk to you because my father's got Parkinson's.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives you a chance to really reach people.
Well, it was interesting because I play poker the first Friday of every month. We play poker, and I was having trouble shuffling the cards because the left hand.
I can't shuffle anymore.
And someone said, "What's going on?" I said, "Well, my guy's in full disclosure. Let me just tell you what's going on." And I said, it was interesting because I told him I was fortunately diagnosed with Parkinson's X amount of years ago, and then okay, well, the one guy said, "I'll just shuffle for you," and that was the end of it.
Yeah,
which was because it was hard to me. And like you mentioned, pickleball. Only a few people that I know at pickleball know I have Parkinson's because part of me doesn't want to be seen as the guy with Parkinson's. I just want to be, I have my social groups, if you will, and I don't want to be the guy with Parkinson's within the social group because that changes the dynamics of the group. But when it gets to a point where I get the few people there know because I become very friendly with them and I want to pursue that friendship relationship with them going forward. Yeah. So I'm opened up to them. I say, listen, I just want to let you know what's going on. But for the most part, it hasn't been an issue. But it's still, there's part of me that doesn't want to be known as Tom, the guy with Parkinson's. And that's different from everybody. So I'm kind of like on the 50-50 on that.
Yeah, that's why he does a podcast now. Parkinson's podcast.
Because none of my friends watch the podcast.
I would say this. I don't at all care that I'm known as Jim, the guy with Parkinson's. Mm-hmm. Parkinson's and this goes back to the question of faith. Parkinson's is something that I did nothing to cause. Mm-hmm. I can't cure it. I can't be blamed for it any more than I can be blamed for being 5'8". I'd love to be 6 feet tall, but I'm not. It's got nothing to do with me at all. To be embarrassed about having Parkinson's is like being embarrassed about being 5'8". I don't care if someone thinks it's special that I have Parkinson's. I want them to know that's what I've got because I want to be available to help anybody that I can. So I understand what you're saying. You're concerned about how they're going to think and treat you. I want them to know because I want that to be a part of what they think of me.
Right. I understand.
And one of the best things for me is when someone will say to me, "Oh, wait a minute. That's right. You have Parkinson's, don't you?" Because they don't think of it all the time. And that means I'm winning. It means that my medicine's working and I'm living my life in such a way that they don't see this as a problem. And every now and then I'll tremor, and every now and then they'll see it and then they'll remember.
So I have a question for you then. The hardest question that you can ask somebody who's Parkinson's and pickleball. What's the score?
Hey, it's always us, you, and me. Mm-hmm. Right? It's always our score, your score, and then who I am.
That's funny. I like that.
So if 0-0-0, then or 0-0-2, I'm 0, you're 0, and I'm number 2.
Because regardless of who's serving,
I'm 10, you're 3, and I'm 1.
Regardless of who's serving, I always repeat the score in my head before they serve 0-2-1, or just otherwise. I'm probably the youngest guy playing Parkinson's that time, and we all have memory issues. So it's really funny. We just look at each other.
And you got to make them call the score every time.
Yeah.
There are people I play with who won't call the score, or as I say it to them, they'll say the score. But you can't hear it. They're supposed to call the score. So yeah.
Yeah, but you never know when the opportunity will arise. Like coming back from the leadership conference, I was in the USO, and because I just needed a break and I needed some free food, so I was coming back, and there was this guy who was an older gentleman, older than both of you, so he was really nice, and I was just talking to him. And I was talking to him, and I just mentioned I had Parkinson's because most people can't tell if I'm just being quiet and just kind of off to myself, and I'm not, and I'm actually pretty on, which I am today, thank goodness. And I was talking, and he said his son was just recently diagnosed, and he was around 40s, and young onset and everything. And he didn't live too far from me. He was near Roanoke. And so we were talking about movement disorder clinic, and I go to UVA. I have to drive about 4 hours because, goodness gracious, it's an hour just to a neurologist, just to a basic neurologist. But I have to go because of the DBS. And, I can't even go to the emergency room locally because they'll freak out. They'll go, "Oh, DBS, what's that? Oh, I can't even give you an EKG. I mean, forget it."
That's right. They don't think they can do anything.
No, because I got 2 generators. So it's like, oh,
Wow.
no. And I got the little, but they, and it's not, it was just being able to, and like the people even at Dollar Tree, they know, "Hey, Katrina, how are you?" And, they come and she'll help me go out to the car. And, I mean, everybody knows I wear my shirts. I wear my Davy Spinney shirt.
Sure.
Because here I have to because I'm actually starting a support group in January at my church. And because there are, the nearest support group is an hour and a half in Wytheville. Yeah. So, I'm working on exercise classes because here, that's the one thing. I had all the resources in Colorado, but I come out here and there's, of course.
Yeah.
But of course, it's not a typical, not everybody has the internet. I have to go to the post office with the flyer and library, and I have to do it old school. And I have to be the boots on the ground.
Last night, my mother-in-law was talking to my wife and she said, "Ask Tom what that superpower he has with Parkinson's is." I'm like, because my mother-in-law lives in one of those communities. It's everywhere from independent living to hospice. And there was a guy named Bill there who she introduced me to, and we had some long conversations. We did a Zoom meet or two. And Bill was very impressed by the conversation we had. So my mother-in-law says, "Bill wants to know what your superpower is." I'm like, "I'm stupid." I got it myself. I don't know but it goes into the point that I'm an advocate for myself, an advocate for my friends. I educate myself. I do all the things you're supposed to be doing. And that's the good and the bad part about this. The good part is I'm doing what I can be doing, but the bad part is somebody hears that and they think you have a super skill.
Yeah.
You're just doing what you're supposed to be doing.
You're doing what you do. I tell people the reason I got involved with Davis Finney is Michael J. Fox does science, and I'm not a scientist.
Yeah.
And the Parkinson's Foundation does science. I'm not a scientist, but I can help talk to people about how to make their lives better.
Bingo. That's the same thing. I said Michael J. Fox is trying to find the cure. We want to help you get to the point where when he finds the cure, that you're going to have your best life up to that point.
And the only way I can help him find a cure is to let him do tests on me.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I'm happy to do that.
My favorite one is, though, I did an MRI. They put me in an MRI for like an hour, and they put these oxygen tubes in my nose.
Tell me about that, yeah.
Yeah, and God forbid, I was in there for an hour, and I never smelled a single thing.
Yeah.
But they said my brain was active.
MRIs freak me out more. MRIs freak me out more than brain surgery.
You get into MRI, you hear the
milligrams of Ativan to get me into an MRI.
Boom, 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 boom. And then you start thinking AC/DC, Black Sabbath, Rush.
Nope.
And that boom, boom, boom sounds like heavy metal. And then you get in rhythm with it. And I've actually fallen asleep in MRIs before.
Yeah, everybody's different. Everybody's different.
No, it's the claustrophobia. I was in tornadoes when I was little in Texas, in north central Texas.
Yeah.
I was in a couple of tornadoes and closets closed in and all that. Nope. No, I was lucky. I actually had the robot to do I actually got to sleep through when they inserted the electrodes.
Yeah.
The robot.
That magic hour, so we like to try to keep it around an hour. So first, I want to say, Jim, it has been an absolute pleasure having you today.
Yes,
the conversation
it's fun to be here.
And it's like, this is what we want to do. We from the minute Jim got on, we just talked and we had a conversation. Mm-hmm. Jim kind of had a thing what he wanted to talk about. We just talked, and that's what we want to do. So if you have anybody out there that wants to join this group, whether it's a participant or just watch, let them know. It's just an opportunity to hear people talk about Parkinson's. And also, because again, I'm a lightning rod for stupidity. That's my superpower. So I'm going to say goodbye by giving you one more of these.
It really doesn't matter if you leave the toilet seat up. It makes it easier to clean.
That's my goodbye to everybody. Jim, do you want to say any parting words since you're our guest of honor today?
No, just remember, the reason they leave the toilet seat up is because they love you. When you walk in, they want you to know that it's safe.
There you go. I like that. Good answer.
Thanks a lot. I enjoyed it very much.
You guys take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Next week.
I'll give you a quick phone call.
All righty.